Why is he so shy?
Oh, he doesn't know what to do.
Oh, say hi. Hello, people.
So, hello, everybody. We are here to answer your questions. And since Sibo is always good in answering questions, we are the three of us. Yes.
Yeah.
You're really in love with this guy, yeah?
Of course.
So, please be careful for my computer, Sibo.
How is the mouse? Yummy? Is it tasty?
Do you want to answer a specific question, actually? Huh? No? So we are going through your questions. You know, a few weeks ago we launched the video Ask Us Anything. This is actually the second episode. And that means also that if you have other questions for us,
Don't leak.
you can, please don't eat my microphone. Don't. It's a new one. Thanks to the patrons. Thank you, patrons. So leave it. So if you want to ask us a new question, if you didn't see the previous video, leave it in the comment. I will have a pinned comment there where you can ask your questions. And if you want to have questions on Sibo, there was one question on you, I think. Do you sing with my recordings? Do you sing? No, you're very silent. So, okay, Alberto, keep him quiet.
Bye.
So this Ask Us Anything video series is just about that. We open up once in a while a comment box where you can ask your questions. You knowing for sure that I or Alberto will be together are going to read that. So again, in this video we go through your questions, try to answer them or give an answer. And in the comments below, you find a pinned comment where if you have new questions or other questions, you can leave them there. Again, use the Twitter rule, 140 to 280 characters. So ask us anything that we can respond to, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. Max A asks us, you were indirectly mentioned in this article on the bottom of the pages in German. What do you think about it? I haven't clicked on that, so let's see. Wie Geschwindigkeit raus. Okay. I'll cookies akzeptieren. Actually not, but let's do that. On the bottom of the page. Beethoven war ein absoluter Tempofanatiker. Für den war Tempo das Wichtigste überhaupt, so der Pianist. Aufführung auf seinen Symphonien. In Ausland habe sich Beethoven erkundigt, wie lange diese gedauert hatte, sicher zu sein, dass sie im richtigen Tempo gespielt wird. That's not true. I don't know who's saying that actually. Michael Korstick, that's the guy who played the Adagio of the Hammerklavier in whole beat tempo.
Whole beat, yeah, it's.
I don't know on purpose, but it's beautifully played actually. So if he says that, what he says here is that Beethoven actually asked people who came from foreign countries how long that these performances lasted to check the tempo. That's never happened.
No.
I don't know how he quotes that without, and even in quotation marks, right? No, it's not literal quotation, but that's not happening. He was concerned about tempo. We just asked to the tempo. He didn't ask how long did my symphony last to then recalculated. No, it didn't happen. At least I haven't seen a letter of him doing that.
I say duration.
Das zurzeit Beethovens entwickelte Metronom ist für Korstick durchaus Richtmaß. Nicht, weil es ihm slawische Regelbefolgung geht, sondern, wie sagt, sei die Metronomzahl von Zeitgenossen überliefert, könnte man sich auch ein Bild machen, was Beethoven gemeint habe, vor allem welchen Charakter. That's of course. Oh, there's the last paragraph. Oh. Allen Verschwörungstheoretikern, die meinten, bei Metronomüberlieferung sei immer nur der zweite Schlag gemeint, empfiehlt er den Beginn der Waldstein-Sonate. Befolgt man diese Theorie, dann würde man aus dem Allegro con brio, also dem schwungvoll feurigem Tempo, eine Schlaftablette. Oh, I like that. So your Waldstein actually was...
I hope he had some good sleeping then, like...
With some 20,000 other people really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And actually, if you see why does a pianist of his statue, do you say stature or statue? Status. Actually feels the need to talk about conspiracy theorists. I mean, really? The only thing we do is take the metronome as a fact. That's the opposite of a conspiracy
We would
theory.
like to be treated also like as normal colleagues who maybe come to different conclusions, but nevertheless serious people. So.
Well, thank you for pointing out to this. We might look into this a little bit further. I mean, how do we feel about that? What we think about it? Like Alberto said, why the need to call us out for something that we are not?
So I guess also his Adagio of die Hammerklavier, we should take the Schlaftabletten. Because that's almost in a whole beat, the way he plays. So
I don't get it. I can promise you to look into it a little bit more if you can do something with this. And maybe contact him. I mean,
maybe he's interested.
We are not the enemy, but we are not conspiracy theorists.
We are interested to talk. Always here.
That's a fact. You can interpret the facts differently, but we are going back to the facts.
Maybe even better talk there, words there.
At the piano,
thing, Maybe that's even more interesting.
But it's weird that a position of his status feels the need to talk about this.
Yeah.
And
without even really knowing us. Okay, whatever. Let's go. Let's move on.
Okay, the next question. You think you got haters? Alberto, that's for you. I think the haters come for you. People really like me.
Absolutely.
Sibo, of course. We shouldn't use him that much because people don't like dogs. It's known that golden retrievers are the most hated species of dogs. That's probably... No, but seriously, I mean, it's a question that many people have. Why is it necessary? I mean, people that come after us
I really wish we have an answer, but what I can just say maybe it's like... Not all the adults in this world are grown-ups. There's a difference in between being an adult and being a kid in the body of an adult.
Okay.
in a way.
But if you go back to Korstick, I mean, I don't know if he published a longer article than that. We have to figure that out. That's not even childish behavior. It's like insulting on purpose. And that's what old Privave meant. It's a kind of phenomenon on internet that people just type in shit, And
I will say that partially it comes from also some sort of confrontational fear. I don't know. We are not worried about talking to somebody who thinks differently from us. There's no problem.
Could it be also that if you have a metronome mark, I mean, you have a lot of performance aspects, practice aspects that you can talk about. You say, okay, shorta passatura. I play it long now. I played it short. You can say, okay, let's look at the sources, but I'm fine with your interpretation anyways. There are some elements that you can give and take. But the metronome mark, there is no gray zone.
Yeah.
And so if you point to a solution that people don't like, there is nothing to
I think it's because people very often feel like we are telling them what to do, which is not the
That's
case.
Maybe a good point, yeah.
And then we are not, guys, especially indirectly with our performances, guys, we are just like reconstructing the music from some metronome numbers and according to the theory that Women Lawrence research here. So there's no obligation for anybody, and also this content, it's like just for whoever wants to enjoying that. I mean,
maybe it's by implication.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what I might say is that people see the logic of that and see that if you really want to take this metronome number seriously, there's only one solution.
What we think, and that's also why we say historical tempo reconstruction. And we have made once a disclaimer, but we should actually copy it to all the recordings. People say, you claim it's the only solution. Well, we believe that's the only solution, but actually we don't claim that. We say it's an historical tempo reconstruction. The historical tempo is a metronome mark. It's not ours. And it's a reconstruction.
Yeah.
And so to prove that it's a reconstruction, you have the overlay of the metronome ticking, not hard, of course, but you see the metronome overlay, you can test it for yourself. And I will not say that we sometimes are not 1 beat or 2 beats off. It will not be too much, but we're just humans. But we are reconstructing that tempo indication.
Yeah, of course.
That's all we do. if you feel that it's talking to you, and as if you must feel the pressure to do it as well, well, that's a good thing, because then you are on our side, because then you also want to find...
We also care.
Yeah.
We also care,
So,
of course.
But we cannot... I mean, if everything we did was such a nonsense, then Korstick would not talk about us. By the way, you're full of Sibo hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Just throw it on the
shedding
ground.
all over this dog.
Anyways, it's a difficult question to answer. Okay, let's move. But we touched upon some elements, and maybe that's a coffee machine you hear. Okay, Benjamin Gunge. Do you have sources dealing especially with how metronome numbers are to be read in triple time signatures, for example, dotted half note and 3/4 time? I ask this because I found it hard to set a metronome to beat 2 and then play in 3. Well, that's the tactus inequalis. Of course, in the times of the tactus and that 17th century, 16th century, even 18th century, certainly until the 17th century, you had a lot of, I mean, there was just a practice, and that's Lower and stuff more. We made some videos about that. That's a practice where you have still the division, like the Mersenne pendulum, it goes left, right, up, down the tactus, so you don't change that. But if you want to sing in triple meter or play in triple meter, you, instead of doing 1, 2, 1, 2, you do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It's that practice that went into the metronome as well. Now, if you have a metronome, that's of course harder to play along with. If you go on the channel and you type in, what's the name of that? Danel, the French source. I've made 2 videos on that. That's 1860, and it's a very specific mention of the tactus inequalis, of course, not with that terminology, but he connects the 2 movement to a triple meter of the and the metronome world. That's really unique. That's a really unique source. Other than that, the metronome, and there will be more, we will elaborate more on that in the book. You have 2 uses of the metronome, and that's actually mentioned a lot. You have the function of the metronome as a tempo indicator, and you have a function of the metronome just as a practicing machine. And so, for instance, when Czerny says in his book how to, I don't know, in Opus 500, I'm quoting from memory now, there's somewhere a passage where he says how to use the metronome. You just leave the rod and you have it tick for a while. So to have your tempo in your mind, and then you play after you close it.
Yeah.
But even try it. If you have 100, what was your tempo? 80. Well, 1.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1.
So every time you have 1, 1, 1, and you close 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you also feel, you should try it. It's not easy to play along with the metronome. Then you can do it. Certainly if the tempi are faster, it's actually not so difficult.
No.
Easier.
But if you have like a 50, then it becomes hard.
But those are of course also the exceptions. The most of these tempo are like in a higher range. Not always.
Yeah.
But if you go higher, it's easier with the metronome than with an app, because you see the rod going back. It's super easy though with the pendulum. That's really not a problem at all, because the pendulum has this margin of, you have the perfect division, or you have the imperfect division, the inequalis.
Yeah.
The pendulum is in the movement all there. So, but if you want to practice with the metronome, and let's say you have a very, very, very slow metronome mark for 50 dotted quarter note, that's the tempo of the Andante of the Sixth Symphony, I guess. Well, you can put your metronome on 76. If you want to have the ticks of the metronome just go along with you. 75 is not on the metronome. But it wasn't really the practice. There was that metronome mark was a tempo indication. So to convert it into a practicing ticking machine, that's actually, as far as I see it, not always meant to be. I hope that answers your question. And go to the source of Danel. It's really, really, really an important source. Okay. Ali Afifi. These days, many young and talented composers aspire to have experienced musicians perform their own works. Earlier, not so long ago, The channel used to accept such requests, not so often though, and play pieces by new composers. My question is, would you be able to bring that idea back? Have composers submit their works in a form of some sort, perhaps even with a submission fee, and have new composers' short works in the classical romantic style performed by you two gentlemen in whole beat. Okay. Maybe this could turn out to be a nice serious addition to the channel. Yeah. An explanation asterisk, after all, who doesn't like an extra flow of money through submission? Yeah, to start with that, I would not do this on a page through submissions that people would pay for, because then, I mean, where you want to be in charge for this. Now, listen, I brought quite some compositions of Kostas Papazaforopoulos. Can you
pronounce
his
that?
name?
Oh,
I practiced that. He has a beautiful name actually, but it's so long in the title. You've seen some of those recordings because so
he also sent me some stuff. I was thinking, you
were in contact, but
I would be interested in playing some of his stuff, but of course, maybe for me personally,
Well, the thing is that I collaborated with Kostas really, really intensively. Actually, it was very nice. He contacted me very early when the channel was still very young. Remember, there was a C minor sonata. We went over that together. I played it, and I played some other pieces of him. He is a very, very talented guy. Check out his channel, by the way. He is really underestimated. But the thing is, Ali, if I can call you with your first name, quite a lot of composers, and I have to say also not all of the same level of Kostas actually contacted me. And then comes the problem. I mean, I cannot just play all music, because then I have an audience that say, yeah, Wim, I mean, we are here for you. We click on the video and then we would hear music that's actually not so interesting. A lot of compositions in that early style is really hard, but actually sound like conservatory exercises, I'm sorry to say. And so what happened also was, and this is a little bit of a personal thing, but then you will understand, sometimes people keep sending me stuff and also involve in the channel in the comment section and build up a relationship, which is actually very, very normal. But after a while, they want to have a return for that. The price comes then. It's not a submission fee, but they say, okay, now you play again something of Kostas, and I've sent you so many works. And then one time, there was a guy who, afterwards he created a really ugly channel against me. I have just seen a portion of a video and then I shut it up. Have you seen that guy? He's like with his glasses like that, making that video, like reading from a paper with a very serious voice. That Daniel W., I would say, I can prove it. He was one of my biggest fans.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote me letters. Recently, I was cleaning my library. I found a letter of him. It's like I was God, and I was talking about new compositions, and he happened to be a composer as well. So, if you scroll back on my channel,
but in the moment you decided not to play.
Well, if you scroll back on my channel, you will see a thank you video for contributions that I received, in the hope that video was made in the hope that they would stop asking me to play, because that music is just not good enough. It's not bad, but it was not appealing to me. And so I have a responsibility to my audience. And seeing a guy who was actually emailing with me on a very regular basis, if you see what he wrote me, it was like sometimes also like on the edge of two.
Unfortunately, I've seen that, and it's very hard to see this shift as something normal in that video.
And then, then suddenly he found the WBMP to be insulting, and then you know what happens. Everybody knows that channel, I guess. And so I don't want that. I don't want also not to give people false hope, so I stopped with
And especially we don't like seeing people dealing with their frustration, so we hope everyone has a nice life. So yeah.
You can put it that way also. But I mean, I'm not the only pianist or performer in the world.
Yeah.
So it's not because I played music of Kostas, which I did also because we still have a very good relationship when we were friends. So if I would play music, contemporary music written today, it would be from Kostas, and I just not from anybody else, because there's still the relationship. And that's hopefully an answer to. It's not the only contact, actually.
No.
I had some contact with some young film composer, great guy.
No, we often also in the mail receive people who suggest
it's
some
not
composition.
Every week, but it's every month. And
it happens, yeah.
And so, and also, Alberto, it's like, what do you think of my composition? And I'm not a composer. I know harmony. I know these things, but I'm the last person to ask for. But if I don't like it, or I see parallel fifths, or I see okay, but it's really not good. How do you deal with that? People don't take that kind of.
We should try to my canon exercise of today. I did a canon exercise. It's been, my teacher was like, really?
Have you seen that video with Kostas where he is actually composing live?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy really can do something, but even that I stopped because of this. So I hope you understand my point.
Wait for my counterpoint exercises, guys, on the channel. Some pieces of art are coming.
and guys, with programs like Sibelius and Note Performer, I mean, it's actually easy to bring your compositions online. It's of course, I get it. When I played a piece of a composer, you get some exposure. I get that, but that makes it even harder for me to do that, because then there will be a flood of compositions, and also I have not the time for that. I don't have the time even for Kostas music. Anyways, hope that answers your question. We continue. Scoopadoobie? Well, okay. I'd love to hear you play Chopin's waltzes in the authentic tempo. Are you planning on playing them for us sometime? Chopin, what does it say to you? You have even a Sibo hair here in your chin.
Here it's like all over. Like that guy, really?
So Chopin, you know the composer?
Yeah, and what can we say? And next year I'm focusing mainly on Chopin, and so.
Just say that you're almost finished with this Opus 10.
Almost.
So
it will be like the etudes will come, and I'm planning also on the preludes after the etudes. It would be nice to have them.
And waltzes and mazurkas and everything.
Yeah, I mean for Chopin it's an endless universe. So definitely some waltzes are coming along with the nocturnes, and there's so much. And
not on the Erard, but on the Fritz.
On the Fritz.
It's unbelievable. That piano.
Unbelievable. So yes, Chopin is coming, and definitely, I will say at least the most famous and fascinating waltzes will be on the channel also, because
complete waltzes, of course.
The complete, definitely one day, but we start step by step,
Okay, so the answer is hell yes.
Yeah, hell yes, yeah.
Okay, next question. Urizen, assuming WBMP is correct, which I personally believe to be, there must have been a point in time, or rather a time period, in which the original interpretation of metronome markings was lost in favor of the contemporary interpretation. My questions are then, what's the timeline of this process, and how exactly did it happen? What key composer and editors used WBMP? What composers, editors started using metronome markings the way we do today? And are there composers that used both? Well, that's the question that we get a lot. When did it change?
When did it change? Yes.
In the book, that will have a separate chapter even on its own, and I will just point to some directions here, and you will get some videos, but also in the book again that will be more elaborate. I will make some videos on that, and actually I'm working on those. This is something that's easy to explain and also hard to explain, because there are a lot of directions. So the answer, when did it change? It never changed. The whole beat principle was traditionally coming forth from the pendulum practice. The tactus, as you just explained, up, down, left, right. When the metronome was introduced, Melzel introduced the metronome to be used like that. Also the Melzel directions, which are not written by him, but it doesn't matter because he didn't, he just accepted that. He didn't comment on those, and they were translated into German actually 2 times, partly in French, so it's an important text. I know that text is seen often as a single beat text, but it's absolutely not compatible with any single beat use. It's directly speaking about the whole beat practice. There's a video on my channel that talks about that, and actually I will make an update on that, not soon, but it's coming. The text in the book is written by Lorenz, is ready already, because he elaborated on that even more. There is no other way to see that. People interpret, people point, and I'm not digressing here, people jump on that thick single beat, but let's not digress on that. The videos on my channel and everything that's there is still applicable. Again, we just elaborate on that. So, but you have also a single beat use, and that use came forth from the frequency use of clocks. In the 18th century, you had some methods, not even methods, but where some authors where the clock was used as a reference, and what you do is then you have just one frequency. You have the seconds, or you have about a second or the half second, and you say, okay, that correlates with about the 8th note, or that correlates about with the quarter note. And very interesting is that those tempo indications, Turek is one of the most important ones on that regard. It's very precise. He takes the ticks of a pocket watch. I don't know if you know that source.
You send me some screenshot.
I sent it to you.
That,
okay, so. But long story short, 1789, his tempo system, so to say, is actually half of what the first metronome mark would say. So when you have to then accept the fact that from 1789 till 1815, that on that moment in 1815 where the first metronome was set, the tempi doubled, because Turek is like a whole beat interpretation of the metronome marks. But if you take a fixed frequency as your point of departure, like adhering a note value to a tick, without setting the tempo indication, which is a full period thing, then you're using the metronome as a clock. Yeah. And that's exactly what Melzel wrote in, I think, 1821, when he freaked out and said, there are some people who uses my clock like a Schwarzwalduhr, like these cuckoo clocks.
Yeah, my metronome is a.
And that was pretty much something that happened in England. You have also their texts that, in fact, do the opposite. Why not just take a watch and just measure 10 seconds or 15 seconds, and then just convert that into a metronome mark, which will result in a single beat metronome mark. Yeah. And so these two systems coexisted. And if you ask when did it change, actually never. Go on the channel, there is a video or 2 videos on the Max Reger-Straube code, which was actually an interview with Henrike Stoen, which was the author name from Marcel Punt. And there you had in 1900, 1910, Straube and Reger living in Leipzig, I think. Straube making the premieres of Reger's organworks. Straube making an edition of Reger's organworks. I think you have to open. And I continue. I think it's Aina, just...
Ding dong.
Okay, so you have this video on the channel between talking about Straube and Reger. Straube and Reger living in Leipzig. Again, I believe. Straube premiering all of the works of Reger. Good friends, never one word of discussion, yet the Straube edition of Reger's music has metronome marks that are about, not exactly, which is important. He metronomized the works himself. But the tempi are about half of those of Reger. It's 1900, 1914. So there is only one explanation, that they used the 2 different systems in a time where there was a shift, of course, to single beat, to modern practice, that you see in the 19th century. It's slowly coming there. But there is not one word of discussion, not one word of confusion. It's only 30 years later that people say, how is that possible? Yeah. That's the thing. And so, do I have the answer why people were just simply fine with that? Actually, no, but it's just a fact. And to wrap this up, I mean, we can talk about this for an hour. It's really fascinating. So I regularly get the comment from people on the channel, some older guys, like in their 70s, pianists, who had lessons when they were young from also someone who was older, that tell me, like, if they had metronome problems with metronome marks that were too fast, that their teacher says it's not a problem, just take 2 ticks for 1. So it was something that was still there. Then you had a period, I think, where there was much less focus on reconstruction of the authentic meaning of that, and tempi went up so much that almost single beat speeds were reached. As today, there is a certain ceiling. We will never get there, but we come from this, and performance practice brought us here. And then the impression was there, as still today, if we go a little faster,
we are there. We are there.
Actually, we come from there. And also the single beat metronome marks are here.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. And again, there is a lot more to say. It's just in a nutshell. It's an important thing, though, because the question we get a lot. Henri Gaida, you did say anything, so I have to ask, does Sibo ever sing along while you're practicing? We actually answered that at the beginning. It doesn't. He is unbelievably quiet.
Yeah, he's always quiet. So even when we record, he's always there. You don't see him, but it's very close to the recording setup, and he's
actually sleeping then.
Yeah, he doesn't make a noise. And maybe sometimes it's dreaming or snores a little.
You ruined one passage in your Hammerklavier Adagio, right?
Yeah, and where I had to redo it, but like for the rest, the guy is perfect.
Johan van Kerkhoven, Wim and Alberto, are you too interested in meeting up to have a drink once the public health situation permits it? Yeah, it would be great. I mean,
Johan, yes, of course.
Maybe do some live concert here in the chapel. We were just there yesterday. Yeah. We have the key again, so we're going there. We actually were planning to record some of these videos there, but now we had an afternoon in the house for us, so we make use of that. And then they bring some packages.
Yeah.
So yes, of course.
Yes.
Fugist, what do we know about Melzer's earliest metronome models? I seem, according to Czerny, that at the beginning there were more than one definite type. Apparently the first models didn't make any click sounds. Well, there were a lot of prototypes also before Melzer.
The chronometer also.
That was his first attempt. Yeah. I don't know how that looked really. I mean, I'm not a metronome
But that was like the really first thing before the actual metronome.
Even before, you had a lot of attempts for, I mean, it's not that we didn't have anything. And then the metronome came. There was, from a certain time period, there was like the call for a time-keeping device or time-giving device, tempo device, was louder and louder. And so Melzer just came up with the right device that enabled everybody in such a small package to have also slow tempi.
Yeah.
But the different types that Czerny talks about is you had the original metronomes, they went from 50, and I'm pretty sure 160, but yeah, it's 160. And later they went from 40 to 208 like this one. And also the first one, I think, was a little larger, and then Melzer diminished the size of those. I was recently in contact with a guy from Italy, by the way, who is a collection of metronomes you cannot imagine. And he has one of the earlier metronomes, so before really the metronome patent, and he has one the same as the batch of productions that Beethoven got run from. You cannot imagine.
Yeah.
And I asked him how accurate is that thing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
This engineering, Melzer was kind of genius. I mean, he's always quoted like he took it from Winkel.
Yeah, okay, but
what the guy did, he was like a royal court.
Nevertheless.
Okay, Mass of Maze. Where can I buy books about music? I would like to buy some books since I'm from Serbia and here you don't have much books about Baroque music, classical music, etc. I would say use Google, use IMSLP, so the Petrucci library, and there is a lot scores and books. And I would say read the original ones if you haven't. I mean, musicology books are too expensive. I once bought and that's probably also what you mentioned, I once bought the letters of C.P.E. Bach. It's upstairs I think it's Oxford or Cambridge University. I mean, it was like 130 euros for a book like this, really. I mean, that's a public funded institute or that should make this available. I mean, and I had to buy it because they're not online. So a great book on Baroque is also the book that Dolmetsch wrote in 1900 or 1910. I don't quote me on that. So Dolmetsch was actually the first early. You know Dolmetsch? I know Dolmetsch, the clavichord maker.
No.
He made wonderful instruments. Actually, that was the period where the clavichord was really, really, really in vogue, you know. But then came Wanda Landowska, and she said, that's not possible, that Bach played on that. I want to have a harpsichord. And then Pleyel came with this huge piano harpsichord.
Harpsichord rocks.
Yeah, but she did unbelievable things. She was a great musician, but that was actually the downside of the clavichord. But Dolmetsch, if you read his book on 17th century performance practice, there is so much in there. You feel ashamed when you read that. And I think I can imagine it's online. If you don't find that, it's certainly not so expensive to buy it in a Dover reprint. Great stuff. I'm not saying it's state-of-the-art 2020, but it will put you really on the right track. Saif standby. Does Brahms, Tchaikovsky, and other composers wrote their composition in WBMP? We talked about that. Tchaikovsky, it's obvious why we think. Because there are some note performers on the channel, and Brahms, well, for the symphonic music, yes.
Yeah. We don't have much of by Brahms in terms of metronome numbers. The most famous ones are the metronomes on the second piano concerto, which are
same problem. Huh?
Same problem. They are basically impossible in single beat, I will say, especially the one of the first movement.
Some trios as well, eh?
Some trios, and so I will say that especially there has been a point in history, especially in the second half of the 19th century, where composers didn't give metronome numbers as much as anymore for their music. I'm talking especially about Brahms and Liszt. But
although Wagner gave metronome.
Yeah, but even Chopin, you see that after a certain opus number, there are no metronome numbers anymore. So it's hard to say why they stopped. Certainly, there are the two famous quotations also from Brahms and Mendelssohn that basically one musician should be able to find the right tempo.
Mendelssohn didn't leave much either.
Yeah, and but at the same time, you also find a lot of editors in the second half of the 19th century that published all music, like not all music, but like for example, the three Brahms piano sonatas have been metronomized by an American guy who was a clavichord player who came to study the music of Brahms and Bach here in Europe. And
Reinecke and Reinecke of
I don't remember, but it's so
it's a right tradition,
and he metronomized those three Brahms piano sonatas. Those metronomes, by the way, are totally in line with those of Beethoven or
that's the thing. There's not such thing as individual tempi. We're looking for
Busoni giving the metronome numbers for listed transcendental etudes. So
which are also really really fast. It's not unplayable.
So that it's a little complicated. And also, I mean, Kulak giving for Chopin. So it's
actually interesting what you say, that a lot of editors, I mean, they hired important musicians to do that, like Mertke, Kulak, Köhler.
Sturm for Schubert at the beginning of the 20th century metronomized.
But there is an article or in a newspaper that I will bring on the channel once, I mean in the coming weeks or months, 1866 by a certain Kruger, I think. And he says like the metronome is hated by this self-thinking musician because it pinpoints him to a certain tempo. And there was in the time where musicians were like, it's my music, you compose it, I'm playing your music. So this connection of the composer and the musician was happening. And I think that is where this tension came, or this pressure on composers that they didn't give metronomes.
Yeah, maybe composers, I don't know, this is totally like an hypothesis, but like composers like Brahms might have been, might very well be aware of the fact that even by writing a metronome number, like maybe nobody would have followed that. I don't know.
It's something. Well, that's a study on its own. It's an interesting thing. Why did so many composers left, and why did then so many editors picked up there?
Yeah.
So, anyways, Herman Musico. Hi Wim, a question. I've been trying with my piano students to implement WMP forms. That's great to implement WMP some time. So, make some recordings of that. Well, let's just click. Maybe there are recordings on that channel. Because that's actually great. That's unbelievable. This channel doesn't have any content. Maybe it's just just recently.
December 10th, 2020.
Maybe the guy made a YouTube name just to ask a question. So, but if you have a YouTube channel now, just share that. That would be great. Actually, we could have a Facebook page actually.
Yeah.
Where actually we have a Reddit page. That would be the place.
Yeah, on Reddit, guys, you can join. Also, share your performances in a whole bit.
So share it there. The ternary time signatures are really troublesome.
Same question.
Okay,
we
answered that.
Yeah. So Luca
Simoncini, do you define yourself as an audiophile? Few musicians are actually audiophiles, or at least aware of the importance of quality in music reproduction. What's your opinion on the subject? Well, I know Luca very well, and for a long time he is an audiophile. He has a beautiful system for vinyl records. So, we made a vinyl disc. I don't know if I have one here with Pachelbel. So, yes, we record everything analog. We should make a video of behind the scenes how we record, because people might not know that. I personally am not an audiophile. Because you have people who are much more into this. I don't listen that much to music either. I don't have the time, and I shouldn't ask the question to you because you listen everything on your phone. I recently the experience when we were going over the first symphony edit, so Beethoven's recorded. I said we do it on the system here. I have a kind of decent amplifier. It's all not the highest level, but it's okay. It was pretty impressive.
Yeah, for me it was like, wow.
Suddenly you realize, actually the system that we have here, we invest, Luca, that's my answer. That I think as much as we can in doing it at the highest level. I think our system is perfectly for doing here. We have a stereo system, 2 microphones, stereo tube amplifier, preamplifier, then the stereo tape recorder that's digitized by a benchmark, also stereo converter, and that goes on the computer. So it's a pretty okay system. But to call me an audiophile, no. Though I think it's important for musicians to record themselves because you learn so much.
Yeah.
You learn so much. Also for you, I think, recording yourself.
I guess it's pretty clear, like how my playing changed over this year.
Maybe the Belgian beer.
Belgian beer as well. That's
the secret. The secret
mixed with some Italian spaghetti.
But I'm really dreaming of making really high quality. With the Pachelbel, I think was pretty high quality, but continue that. Next year, we're hoping to implement also some other aspects, that's to become an organization more than just 2 guys who do some funny stuff, because we have still the partitas to launch, the Bach partitas. So I think it's an important for classical music, and then I close the question, but classical musicians and classical brands, they miss an opportunity not go back to the highest audiophile level, and some are doing that.
Yeah,
I think there's certainly a market, because Spotify, let's be honest, we don't make money on Spotify. We are not really present on Spotify, but that will come. Okay, Manuel Valencia, question about practice book, and sorry, I've been asked for Hanon, Czerny progress etudes, both perfect etudes. By the way, Hanon, one of the first French sources in single beat. Compare those metronome marks with Czerny. And do we really have to assume that in 1870 or 1875, when Hanon was published, by the way, you don't find anything about him, or not much, that Rachmaninoff said the entire Russian school is built on Hanon, but his tempo markings are almost exactly half of those of Czerny. It's on my bookshelf to make a comparison.
Yeah, but it's not that the Russian school is technically inferior. So Czerny was so much more developed than Rachmaninoff.
But that's the implication of saying that.
Yeah. So. But that's why Czerny wrote the Rachmaninoff 3. Sorry, no, it's the opposite. Sorry.
By the way, Czerny, not easy stuff.
Not easy stuff at all. Not easy.
Orhan Bestun, is it possible to reconstruct the Belcanto singing of the old Italian masters and apply them to musical instruments? Well, that's what the pianists did, eh? That was all about Belcanto singing and all these ornaments.
Yeah.
And so, but it's really hard. One of the masters was Chopin.
Yeah.
He had this thing, this ease with left hand just stable. But I don't think there is anything that can replace this, a human voice. Nothing, even not wind players or string players.
I can try to talk in Italian while I'm playing some Chopin.
Daniel Fryer, your video about the 1808 concert showed that whole beat tempi of performance time estimates. That whole beat tempi performance time estimates, not without taking into account interval gaps between pieces, exceeded historically recorded performance times. That's a difficult question. I get your point. Nevertheless, you conclude that historical records support WB theory. Well, it's not a theory. You bring it in practice. I've gone over that. You can say that, but it's not a theory. Single beat will remain as theory until we can apply it, not for just a few metronome marks, but for an entire set. I'm trying to understand how you arrived at this conclusion. Well, I would say go to that video. It's 30 minutes. You have something.
You find everything there, and the only thing that I will add is that many people have missed a little bit the point of that video, which is that the main point of the video was to show to you guys how. Durations and metronome numbers are not necessarily, I will say almost never the same aspect of the research, because in the duration stuff there are a lot of things, a lot of elements that we don't know.
Oh, Sibo here.
Sibo. That we cannot know, for example, like the practice of almost never performing entire works. And so if we see a program, like how do we know that they performed everything? And moreover, and we don't know about the tempi taken there. How can you reconstruct a duration, a metronome numbers based on duration? And what you see indeed in that video is that you have a problem both with single beat and whole beat. Namely, in single beat you are missing no less than 90 minutes of music, and a whole beat you are missing just, I will say, was 50 minutes.
There's a reconstruction where it's very simple to fit in.
The point is that durations will always lead to an enormous amount of speculation. And so you can adapt that in both ways.
And plus, the outcome is oftentimes somewhere in between, just as today. Or even flat out pointing to whole beat. There are durations mentioned that are just whole beat durations, but of course they're not bringing on the front. We're going to come back on durations. That's of course something we will do. But that 1808 video is pretty clear. Also, the intervals between pieces, guys, what I would add in the 1808 video is today would be this. There was an academia concert, so people were walking in and out. Beethoven was demonstrating some music. This was not like a gala concert. It was not like people were sitting still. Even, what's the name of the key witness? Reichardt. He said, I was sitting in the royal box of Lobkowitz. Beethoven saw me, so I couldn't. And by the way, he was visiting Beethoven. And then later on, I read it in his letters. He stabbed Beethoven in the back because Beethoven had an offer from Westphalia. He wanted to leave Vienna. And so Reichardt said, Don't do it, Beethoven, don't do it. And guess who was taking the appointment there?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyways, he says, I cannot leave. I would have left, but Beethoven saw me, so we didn't sell. But people were coming in, were going out. The hall was almost empty when the concert the presentation was over. So I don't even think there was a break. Reichardt doesn't mention that. Breaks between the pieces, well, yeah. It's like not that they would have the entire orchestra go out from stage. It's not like today.
Yeah, we have this thing of like just projecting our context into something that we don't know. I mean, it wasn't the same context of today.
It's durations is something really interesting, but we will make a series of videos on that. That's coming. But as you say, it's our insecure data. You have to be able to reconstruct the context around that. But in the case of the 1808 concert, even there, where we have the metronome numbers of Beethoven 10 years later, we go back and we see it doesn't match the duration of Reichardt, which is only for our estimate. We cannot even know if it's really, really correct what he said.
Yeah, keep in mind that there is no second source that can back up what Reichardt says. And we don't know. We have just that. So it's basically impossible to reconstruct the tempi of those pieces based on that duration, and especially relate them to metronomes that Beethoven gave how many, 15 years later?
And to conclude your question, Daniel, if you ask a question, and you're welcome to do also today, but you should do a little bit your homework. I mean, I didn't make that 30 minutes video to just skip all my conclusions and arguments. We can repeat all over the time the same questions, and I can give you the same explanation, and you just skip everything and you come back to, and you skip everything and you come. I mean, that's not a discussion. If you want to have this kind of conversation, it's not a conversation. It's I cannot repeat everything that I've said in that video, but it's pretty complete. So, and if actually don't know what you could say differently from that video, then there is a lot of speculation, but the conclusion of that not by me, if you go take durations as a foundation for tempo research, I mean, that's much less a fact than just metronome marks. Metronome marks are just indisputable ticks per minute, so many ticks. Durations based upon Reichardt, who said, I want to have left really early on in the concert because it was too cold. I mean, it's interesting. I've shown
also
in the
because
video.
Honestly, when it's about playing faster and people say, no, look at those metronome numbers. It doesn't matter if you cannot match them, but they point to faster performance. And then you come with a solution that allows you to play according to those metronome numbers. But we have the durations. All in a sudden, the metronome numbers are secondary to.
I mean,
it's one or the other.
One of the conclusions, I mean, I may hope nobody makes that, but is that, you see, the durations prove that the metronome marks were actually not meant to be played. Because if you make that connection to allow yourself to be freed from the metronome marks, I have news for you, and there is no Beethoven anymore to keep you from doing what you want to do first.
And again, the most important thing is that when all these composers, especially Beethoven, wanted to give you the right tempi, he didn't write to go to the 1808 concert. He gave you a metronome number.
Yeah, sure. In those days it was important. But anyways, you can do whatever you want. But searching for an alternative solution to what's actually not giving you any room. A metronome mark is not giving room,
Yeah.
It's the one or the other. Well, if you feel great about the durations to debunk or to reject the metronome numbers, that's okay. But that's not correlating with the historical truth. The metronome marks were exact, accurate tempo indications, and the book will have about 100 quotes that just say that. So, okay, I think then we are done because Peter is just answering some questions with his opinion, which is fine. Or here's another question, the same Harman. How did musicians at the time refer to what called whole beat? Well,
they just Google it.
Oh yeah, he said if I Google the term, no, of course. I mean, it was a metronome mark, it was the tempo indication. And we talked about single beat, whole beat, and the coexistence of those two principles, two practices. Like this pianist said, just take 2 ticks for 1. If it's too fast, they didn't say, let's practice 24 hours a day for 50 years to not be able to match the metronome number that we know it's too fast.
Yeah.
No, they just half it. So actually we should maybe now reach out to people and say, have you contact with certain with that generation of teachers, because we should collect that information. Okay, and that's how the normal...
Oh, wait, I think it's somebody like... this Claudia.
Not sure if it's the right place to ask or if you prefer the chat window, but I give it a try. Could you please say something about how common whole beat, single beat?
Yeah, that's the same question. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
We hope to have answered, Claudia.
Okay. I think there's something here. Oh yeah, there's some questions here. Guys, leave it in the pinned comment.
In the pinned comment, otherwise we lose them.
My question, will you at any point in the future do any recordings using modern tempo? If so, I would love to see a recording where the first half of the video is a whole piece and the next one is in the modern. I mean, why?
Yeah,
the point is that single beat is just too fast in many, and not only for him or for me, but for the entire race of pianists. So why would we play in single beat when nobody else is playing in single beat?
Yeah, and also why would we play in a way that we think it's not the authentic way of reading a metronome?
Exactly.
So. We are not the burden of playing in single beat. It's not on our shoulders, I will say. It's
That's
on the other
correct,
it's on the other side, but those recordings are still missing in a way. So yeah.
Then the question, what's your opinion about the proposal of Johann Sonnleitner on the variable approach of the tempo and that Bernard Ruchti's used in his interpretations? Well, yeah, not talking about inside kitchen material, but we've been in close contact with both of them, and they have a very different approach. They don't want to be pinpointed to metronome numbers. That's the only thing I can say. The first thing of Sonnleitner was when he published his introduction in the Opus 106. It's not that clearly mentioned there, but his idea was like if the metronome mark, the note value is smaller than actually the time signature. Like for instance, if you have eighth notes and the metronome, the time signature is 4/4, then already you have a halving of the metronome mark, so you shouldn't halve it again. And then, I shared with him the Czerny metronome marks for Beethoven, which is enough to say, like, listen, sometimes Czerny marks metronome mark with, let's say, eighth note 100, and the other times with quarter note 50. That means that he changed his mind. It just in the ratio of 1:2, which of course took that entire concept down. And then I've understood that Bernard Ruchti came with a new theory that says it's all single beat, but you actually have to, according to your tastes, sometimes it's whole beat. And then I do not follow his channel now. Recently, I should actually, but most of his recordings are just flat out in whole beat, and then whole beat plus 20% sometimes. So they do whatever they want. I mean, I don't think that's at the end the right approach, but in a way we are not talking the same thing. They are really on another, they're talking about something else. So maybe we can collaborate in the future. Many people ask that. I don't know. We are open for that. But then we have to put the facts on the table. So if there is no historical fact to back up some claim, then there is no historical fact, so we don't claim that.
Yeah.
But all respect to both of these people. I mean, there is nothing personal here.
Thanks for uploading. My general question when preparing a piece which has no metronome numbers.
So let's read it out loud. My general question, when preparing a piece which has no metronome mark but only allegro presto, do you try before performing the whole metronome range for each indication, slowest to fastest, or do you build an inner metronome number of your own? Well, that's an answer that's difficult. You can develop that kind of feeling. It's remarkable after a while that you say, okay, I feel now an andante instead of an adagio, which sometimes it's not so easy to just say which of both metronome marks, because there are overlaps. I feel an allegro molto and it's marked allegro. But what you can do if you're not feeling secure, you take the notation, time signature, are the 32nd notes or the 16 notes, and you go match it to pieces where you have metronome numbers from, and go on IMSLP. There are a lot of 19th century editions there that have excellent metronome marks. Viola Hussein, Derwin, would you explain to me how I can manage to humidity in my harpsichord? The instrument does not seem to be holding the pitch. Yeah, that's very important. I use always, how do you say, the vaporizing system, like hot humidity. So
Humidifier.
that's actually steaming, so warming, boiling the water, and it has some,
Make
meters.
some steam.
Make some steam, and that works pretty well. The room is large, so use that. Also, always try to have it the humidity, relative humidity between 40 and 60%. It's really, really, really important.
Benjamin Price, can I meet you in person? Yes, also to you, Benjamin. And Glenn, am I wrong about the last challenge, or were most of submission has lower tempo? Please compare to previous challenges the number of slower tempo submissions. He refers to the Schumann.
Okay.
So yes, Glenn, as many people preferred the 80 of Clara because they just preferred it musically, still in a whole beat. So, and there's also a recording of Trifon of the place, the Traumerei at that tempo.
Clara whole beat, unbelievable.
I think so, yeah.
Single beat girl, really, what a name. As you understand it, everyone started out in whole beat in 1815 with the introduction of the metronome. We answered that. When did it change? Everyone was using single beat and whole beat was unknown and forgotten. And after that, Godowski said Schumann's tempo. Yeah, that's an interesting question. So that builds upon the single beat, whole beat coexistence. So you have other late players like Friedman, I believe, on the Chopin, Friedman, I think. There's a video waiting on that. Actually, he didn't agree with Chopin's metronome marks himself, not realizing fully, I think, in the preface that about Chopin's metronome marks, he contributed that to Mikuli. And then he was bragging about his connection, if I remember well, to Rubinstein, which was his teacher, Rubinstein Liszt. Not forgetting that Liszt was kind of not co-publishing this. I mean, this like really doesn't make sense. But then his own metronome numbers are a little slower, except the slow movements. They were on whole beat almost. So he gives single beat metronome numbers late in the 19th century. I thought for a while back in the time that they somehow didn't understand these metronome marks anymore, but that's not the case, I think. They understood those metronome marks to be 2 ticks for 1, but they didn't agree with the tempi chosen because they played way faster. They played so much faster that they played almost in single beat, and so they just changed the authentic metronome marks. In this case of Friedman, because he thought it was Mikuli. Probably wouldn't have done that with Chopin. He wouldn't have played it anyways. So that's the thing. The published metronome marks, even if you go further in time, that they not always correspond with what some kind of recording, acoustic recording, if you come back on piano rolls later. But you live in a time where performance practice was pushing so hard, also on the pianist, to be considered as a professional pianist. You had to meet certain standards. Yeah. So, the metronome marks were the ideal tempo, not necessarily followed even by the composer. I think in Rachmaninoff, but we're not touching there. There's a lot to be researched. And Godowski, same thing. He felt like I can touch Schumann's metronome marks because everybody was, since Clara Schumann, wrongly, she came back from that claim, but nobody talks about that his metronome might have been broken. So takes that to say, it gives me the authority to change that, but he just changed it to his own tempi, which were much faster than Schumann, except for these pieces like Traumerei. Then the question about concert tickets, that we have answered actually also. Concert tickets, that actually the lowest range of, what can you say? You have concert tickets of Don Giovanni 2.5 hours. If you know that in those days, they rarely, if ever, they played full pieces. Even they made cuts within movements. Even George Smart did that. It's one of the foundations of temporally to say we cannot say anything actually, because he made cuts not only in the pieces but in the movements as well. So what can we say? But concert tickets, that's just assuming that all these operas lasted 2.5 hours exactly, and strange thing there is they match then sometimes a modern performance, but then there is not a break anymore.
Yeah.
That's not necessary anymore. So you can find facts and match them and with leaving all context out, but it will not lead you to solving the metronome problem. It's not. If it's enough for you, I cannot say. It's up to you. You don't need me to confirm you in your assumption that this is the right way to go. I will not do that. I will never say that durations are actually a basis or foundation for tempo research, because this is. But if you feel that, then by all means, do it. Take those durations as a foundation for your own practice. I don't think even that's possible, but I'm happy for you if you find peace with that. But you will not get a confirmation from me that's being a good practice.
You can also have some amusement in doing Beethoven's Ninth in 45 minutes at that point.
To just point to the most important.
One of the most important Beethoven saying that the Ninth was supposed
but
to.
We have seen in another video that we recorded
45 minutes
on that. That study that Beethoven misused his metronome. He had poor judgment of what they did not say that.
He couldn't even read the clock.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, guys, this was an hour long. You see, we take our time. We are not short in answering questions. Also, it has to do with the language. I mean, we speak not our own language. Yeah. Probably in our own language it would be shorter. But there's also a lot to say. Some questions just, fire us in a kind of just put us in a certain talking point. And it's all connected. That's the thing. The bottom line is, of course, apart from the personal questions, which are easy to understand and which I personally like, if Sibo sings along with the recording, imagine he would do that. I mean, that would be a problem. During your Hammerklavier sonata. Whoa. I mean, but of course, a lot of question goes on tempo, and that's fine. And the only thing is to make you understand what we are doing better, hopefully to answer your questions, if that's what you're coming for, to have the answers that we can give you, and to understand things better, and to, continue our journey of this fascinating topic. Something to add, Alberto?
It's all there.
So thank you for your questions. Leave new questions in the pinned comment here below.
Yeah.
Please use the pinned comment. Also, if it's not there, just wait with posting your question, because I will pin a question there or a comment there, because otherwise we might just lose it, as we almost lost some questions here. And then we can reinforce the idea that we are escaping some questions to answer. We are not. I think
we're not.
Writing the book is the last thing helps us also to bring everything together. And I think for me, for Lorenz, for you probably as well, it comes pretty much to a kind of full circle. Not to say that there are not aspects that we can research, but some things are by implication also like they are. Okay, guys. So ask your questions. If you're here new, you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, because otherwise YouTube is not serving you the videos anymore. And if you like what we do, then become part of our wonderful Patreon community. So that helps us actually taking 1 hour or 1 hour 15 of our time to do these kinds of things, what we actually love. Thanks for watching. See you soon again.
Bye.
If you enjoyed what you've just watched, do subscribe to this channel, hit the bell, and consider supporting us on Patreon. We need all of you to continue our fascinating musical journey back in time. Thanks for watching. We see each other soon again. Bye.